I'm a 16-year-old female. I had an Instagram account where I mostly posted my artwork. I didn't do much on there, but I'd use it just in case I was bored or felt like showing strangers my art. One Thursday evening, I just got a notification from my Instagram, but it wasn't a comment. It was a message request from someone. I didn't usually talk to strangers online because of potential creeps, but I felt lonely, so I gave whoever this person was permission. Almost immediately, they sent me a text saying, "Hey, I love your artwork," with 5 heart emojis. I shrugged and replied with, "Thank you." Just when I was about to go on another app, they messaged me again, 2 more times. One was a text that said, "This is me, by the way," and the second was a photo of an overweight woman in her mid-30s, laying on her bed while holding her phone and smirking. Presumably the stranger messaging me. I was 16 at the time and knew about online predators, but she looked friendly enough. Looking back, adding this woman to my friends list was the most stupid thing I've ever done. Later that night, I was home alone while my mom was picking up my nephew. I was watching a movie when I suddenly got a message from the woman. I opened it up, and to my shock, it was a disgusting and inappropriate picture of her. Then, in seconds, a text appeared saying, "Like what you see?" with a winking, tongue-out emoji. I was both angry and revolted. I just blocked and reported her, with that picture still burnt in my head. After I finished watching the movie, I was about to put on another one when I got another message request. The only words I thought were, "What the hell does she want now?" as I realized that she made a new account. The text said, "Why did you block me?" in caps with 2 angry emojis and a crying one. I just ignored the request this time. Minutes later, as I was watching the movie, I got another message request. I opened it up, and my stomach turned. It was a photo of my backyard and me in the living room, along with the text, "I can see you." I looked from the living room to the sliding glass door, and there she was, in my backyard, hiding in the bushes, only illuminated by the moonlight. I could have sworn she was holding a kitchen knife. I ran up to my room, hid in the closet, and called the police and my mom. As I was calling 911, so many thoughts were running in my head, like how did she know where I lived? My anxiety got worse when I heard the sliding door open. Crap, I forgot to lock it, I thought to myself as I prayed quietly. I heard footsteps rush up the stairs and approaching my room. I thought this was the end, when to my relief, the sound of sirens came, and I heard the woman running down the stairs in a hurry. I then heard the satisfying sounds of the cops tasering that creep. A week later, me and my mom received an update from the police. It turns out that the woman had done something like this before and had mental issues. Not only that, she had been stalking me for a while now, and I didn't even know. She was given 3 years, and that's all I know. Since then, I set my Instagram on private, and my mom took my phone away, which probably serves me right for almost getting myself killed. I usually hope people with a mental illness get some help, but in this case, this creep won't be getting my sympathy. I'm 17 years old, about to be a senior in high school, and worked at a vet clinic as a kennel worker. It's common for people to ask me to watch their pets or help them with things that are pet related. That's how I ended up staying in one of my teachers' houses these past few days. They just moved in a week ago, so the house is still fairly empty, and there are quite a few boxes. On Monday morning, I went over to their house and began settling in. I spent the day hanging out with the dogs, a younger dog named Milo and an older dog named Chili, until my mom had me come back home for dinner. I was gone for a couple of hours, and went back to my teacher's house when the sun had just set. When I left her house, I had turned off all the lights. However, when I got back to the house, the downstairs bathroom light and front hallway light were on, which unsettled me a bit, but I just assumed one of their neighbors or friends had stopped by and come in. The house key is left under the doormat to the back door, which is something only me and a few of their family friends knew. I ignored it and just started getting ready for bed. I decided to sleep in the living room because it's the coldest room in the house, so I closed the doors which connect the living room to the dining room and sunroom. The dogs settled down, and I started to as well. Eventually, I fell asleep, but was woken up a few hours later to the dogs both up and growling at the doors. which scared me because in the years I've known these dogs, I've never heard them growl. But I just figured it was them being anxious, being in a house with new smells and new sounds, so I brushed it off and eventually fell asleep. Tuesday night was uneventful. The dog slept through the night, and so did I. Wednesday night was when things went wrong though. I got back to the house a little after 8, after having been gone at work for a few hours, and was greeted at the door by the dogs. This was odd to me, as I had put them in the sunroom before I left, so they should have still been in there. The door leading into the sunroom from the living room had been opened, and the ceiling fans which were previously on had been turned off. I'm a pretty paranoid person when it comes to staying home alone, so I immediately wanted to just leave. But I promised my teacher I would sleep there with the dogs at night to watch the house. So I just closed the doors and locked down the house and got ready for bed. As I was laying on the couch, Milo kept pacing and staring up the stairs, something I quickly noticed. What worries me is when he stops and stands at the base of the stairs and starts growling and barking up the stairs. Again, these dogs rarely growl, so I started freaking out a bit when he did this. I tried calling him over to me, but he just continued to growl. Eventually, he did come over to me and sat with me on the couch, but he continued to stare at the upper part of the stairs. I started trying to relax again and turned off the lamp next to me and laid down. The way I was positioned, I could see through the dining room into the sunroom. Their sunroom is all windows and no curtains, and the light from the street was shining into the room, lighting it up just the slightest bit. I was about to doze off when I noticed that I couldn't see any light coming in from the street anymore, and this is when the dogs start going nuts again. Both of them got up and started growling. Milo went over to the stairs while Chili stayed at the door separating the living room from the dining room. I was freaking out, but didn't see any movement in the sunroom. So instead of calling the cops or anything, I called my grandpa and had him stay on the phone with me while I got my shoes and bolted. I went out the back door so I could grab the key off the counter on my way out. And as I got to the gate leading out to the sidewalk, I noticed it was open. I didn't even bother thinking about why it was open and just ran home. Here's where things get even creepier for me. I took a commonly used shortcut that passed through a junior high school. As I was passing the actual school itself, I noticed that one of the side doors to the school was wide open, and the darkness from the hallway seemed like it was pouring out of the door. I was already creeped out, and this just freaked me out even more. I started running faster and eventually made it home. I came back to the house earlier this morning, and the side door to the sunroom was wide open, as well as the closet at the top of the stairs. I had my grandpa check the house with me to make sure nobody else was still there. Thankfully, there wasn't, and I'm really glad to say that both the dogs were just fine. It was mid-January. I went to my best friend Caitlin's house, and her parents and brother went to her aunt's, as that's what they usually do every Friday night. Except this time, she didn't go with them, and we decided to stay home alone. At first, everything was fine. We did normal things like watch movies, have a bunch of snacks, make TikToks, and chilled. But then all of a sudden, we started to hear noises. They weren't just any noises. It sort of sounded like somebody was scratching on the walls and screeching like chalk on a chalkboard. Some moments they were very quiet, other moments very loud enough to hurt our ears. We got scared and decided to turn off the movie and lock her door and sit in silence while we texted her mom. After a minute went by, the scratching finally stopped. We sat in complete silence in the middle of her bed, staring at the door and our phones for a reply. And all of a sudden, we got a reply to make sure her door was locked and for us to keep our phones on. Her mom had checked the cameras and saw a man wearing an all-black trench coat and rain boots come in through the back window. She called the police and said she would be home soon. We sat in the dark on her bed, scared for our lives, hoping we wouldn't get hurt and thinking of an escape plan. We heard footsteps in the kitchen, and it sounded like they were getting closer and closer. The footsteps suddenly stopped at her door, and we both gave each other the most horrifying look. The doorknob started to rattle very slowly, and then they started to get aggressive, trying to open it. Then it stopped. We slowly started to crawl under the bed, and as we did, we saw feet at the bottom of the door, slowly walked towards the other end of the hallway. I quickly got under the bed, and Caitlin ran to put a blanket on the cracks of the door so whoever it was couldn't see us. But then the strange person came back, rattling the doorknob again with something, trying to open it. Caitlin quickly grabbed the doorknob and held the lock, but the person just started to get more and more aggressive, and even started banging on the door. She didn't stop holding that lock, and I got up and helped her. We were so terrified. Then suddenly, the person stopped. Everything was quiet, and we started to hear sirens, and the man laughing while he ran for the back window. With tears in our eyes, we hugged and were so thankful that nightmare was over. Unfortunately, the man was never caught. Soon after the incident, Caitlin's family got a guard dog, and her parents make sure everything is locked from now on when leaving. This happened quite a while back, probably over 10 years ago. I was in the later years of high school and was home alone. My parents were at a wedding that required them to stay at a hotel, and my brother worked the night shift. At that time, my family lived in a very well-known East Coast city in a blue-collar neighborhood that was starting to take a nosedive. As a teenager, I was a bit of a loner. I wasn't a nerd or anything. I was a big guy and pretty popular, but I'm a natural introvert, so I cherished the rare alone time I got. This weekend, I was looking forward to engaging in my normal empty house routine. Play some PlayStation on the big screen TV, then order a late takeout dinner, pizza or Chinese, and pig out while watching some Dragon Ball Z. Then, around 2 a.m., fall asleep on the couch with my old dog Cecil. He was a beagle who was as old as the hills, and had been in our family for about 8 years. He was quiet and peaceful, and spent his time begging for food and sleeping. Unlike most beagles, Cecil never howled or barked. He was more than content to rest his head on your lap and spend the night there. It's approximately 1 a.m. I had just finished the last slice of pizza and was dozing off on the couch when I hear a bang coming from the back alleyway. I didn't think much of it. Anyone who's lived in a city knows noises happen at all moments of the night. Cecil's head popped up off of my lap, and the hairs on his back stood up. He was always a bit skittish, so I calmed him down and started dozing off again. Not more than 2 minutes later, I hear another bang, and Cecil did something I never seen him do before. He leapt off of the couch and ran like the wind towards the door leading to the basement, barking and growling like a dog twice his size. The look on his face reminded me of a German Shepherd canine unit. I'd never seen him like that before, which got my adrenaline pumping. Through Cecil's barking, I could now make out a persistent banging. There was a seldom used door in the basement that led to our back alleyway. It was old and rusted and was hard to open, even with a key, and it made a lot of noise. I suddenly realized someone was trying to break into my house through my basement door. If you haven't lived in a bad neighborhood, if someone tries to get into your house and moves on after realizing the door is locked, they want your stuff. If someone is persistently trying to get into your house despite the door being locked, well, they might be after you. Knowing this, I rush upstairs to grab the heavy wood baseball bat that I keep under my bed for situations like this. Then, I head down to my basement. I probably should have ran, but I was a teenager with a tough guy complex, and plus, I had nowhere to go. While I'm heading down the stairs to my basement, Cecil blows past me with the speed and aggression of a dog half his age. Suddenly, I hear a man's voice say, "Oh crap," and the banging stopped. I didn't call the cops or anyone else, which was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. I just sat up for the rest of the night with a bat in my hand. My brother came home that morning, and I told him what happened. We went to the basement door to take a look, and when we gave it a tug to open it, the whole door fell off. That psycho was one good shove away from getting in my house, but old Cecil scared him off. I'm pretty sure that lazy fat old dog saved my life. When I tell this story to people, they dismiss his actions as a dog doing what a dog was supposed to do. But when I tell you that Cecil never barked or moved that fast in his life, you can take that to the bank. It was almost like he knew the urgency, like he knew that door was gonna give. A few years back, we had to have him put down because he just had no will to live anymore. Before the injection, I got a moment with him alone. I thanked him one last time for his friendship and for what he did that night. At this point, I was a grown man with a wife and kids. I'm convinced none of that would have happened without old Cecil.